It's tough. It is hard. The federal government is now promoting antimicrobial stewardship programs for inpatients, and Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services will probably, if they haven't already, make participation in those programs a condition of participation in CMS. And California already requires stewardship programs for all acute care hospitals. And the programs have a number of different ways they operate in terms of education, feedback, audit, restricted antibiotics, antibiotic cycling, which is probably not as effective as the other methods. It's basically a question of education and getting physicians to think more proactively about the correct diagnosis, the correct drug, getting source control, and duration of antibiotics and de-escalation of antibiotics. I think everybody, C. difficile increases as you get older. So if C. difficile is a major concern, then I think C. difficile is driving the importance for older people. I think antibiotic use probably in hospitals is more in older people. I think pediatric hospitals and pediatric outpatient settings, particularly the outpatient settings, see lots in kids who are febrile, and so there's lots of opportunity to treat for bacterial infections that may or may not be there, may be viral, so otitis media or sore throat, these sorts of things. So there's, I think, a bigger push, and in some ways it's a little bit clearer in kids, I think, than it is in adults. Places, though, that have been aggressive have seen decreased antibiotic prescribing. So the people from Penn had a recent paper showing a very good impact on pediatric prescribing. The problem is, they had a follow-up paper, that when you stop the program, the declines tend to be undone, and the durability of the intervention may be a problem. You know, there are three things I think that are big. One is the National Action Plan for Combating Antimicrobial Resistant Bacteria, or the National CARB Plan from the federal government, just came out in March 2015. So implementation of that is one big step. And antimicrobial stewardship is part of many programs. The second is use of antibiotics in animal husbandry, and to what extent that drives resistance, or the Darwinian selection of the fittest, and resistance elements are around that can get transferred to other bacteria. Right now, I think control of antibiotics in animal husbandry is mostly voluntary, and there's a lot of use of antibiotics for growth promoters. So that is a second issue, whether that will be controlled. I think the third issue is just these plans that the federal government has for both inpatient and outpatient stewardship, and better surveillance by the CDC of antimicrobial use in hospitals, and better outpatient surveillance and interventions. Resistance keeps on getting worse. There are some, for some bacteria, there's a very high genetic barrier to resistance. So for group A strep, they've been around for eons. Penicillins have been around for eons in nature or in pharmaceutical preparations. And group A strep is not resistant to penicillin, whereas other bugs like Pseudomonas, they just walk by a carbapenem and they come out the other side 20% resistant. So I think that resistance for some bacteria will ratchet up. And it's only a problem if we don't have alternative antibiotics. If we had new antibiotics all the time, resistance wouldn't be a concern, but we don't have new antibiotics. So I think it is a concern. So we'll have untreatable bacteria. If we don't do this, the costs of care will go up, and complications like C. difficile will continue to rise, and they have been increasing. So I think it's something that we really have to attack, and it's hard. It's one of the harder things we have to do, because it means changing human behavior.